in 2 years. Another big topic in the GOP debate last night was jobs. This says we expect to get the latest reading on the jobs picture at 8:30 a.m. Eastern this morning. Rick Santorum echoed what many of the candidates said about the jobs market last night.
We have to create better paying jobs. I mean, that's just the bottom line. We haven't. And that's the reason that I've said under my presidency, we'll create jobs and make America the #1 manufacturing country in the world.
Joining me right now on the telephone is legendary investor and Rick Santorum supporter, Foster Friess. Foster, thanks very much for calling in. Good to have you on the program.
Well, thank you for having me, Maria. I'm delighted always to be with you. I remember the old days when we talked about stocks when I was a professional dart thrower in those days.
I remember, and you were such an avid investor and such a smart investor, so I'm going to get to that subject coming up. But first, Foster, what were your observations of that debate last night?
Well, I thought the earlier debate was a lot more civil than the first debate, and I wish the temperament was the same for the second debate. I thought the outburst between Governor Christie and Rand Paul was unfortunate. I think they both kind of came across as less civil, and I don't think they did either themselves well, although a lot of people liked the bombastic approach. It certainly was entertaining. I think the surprising, why were people surprised that Donald Trump wasn't going to pledge not to start a third party when he's really in a real driver's seat? I've been mentioning for a long time that the Republicans should be a lot more polite to him, even if they don't like what he's saying or doing, because he could be a big hero to the Democratic Party. And some people even suggest that maybe the Democrats put him up to that, to go into the Republican thing, come across as Republicans so the people don't like Republicans, and then do a third-party run. And when the Democrats get elected, if you want a hotel in Panama, just give Hillary a call, and she'll fix it in a week for you. So that's in his best interest to have that chip in his back pocket.
I think you make a lot of good points, and that's the reason everyone focused on the fact that he has donated to the Clinton Foundation, and the fact that Bill Clinton actually called Donald Trump before he entered the race to encourage him to join the race. You wonder who he's working for there, because if, in fact, he were to go independent, that could be real trouble for the Republicans. Let me ask you about the winners. I mean, I think Carly Fiorina was much talked about after the first debate, that she came out a winner. Marco Rubio in the second debate, and John Kasich seems to have been the winners. But you're supporting Rick Santorum.
Yes. If you look at what he said and the passion with which he says it, he's so presidential. He's really grown amazingly in the last 4 years. And his message of how do we take care of the 74% of our fellow Americans who haven't graduated from college. I mean, my gosh, Maria, when we get on check in our bags morning in the airport or 11:30 at night into a hotel, these are the people that make our country work, and where would we be without them? And as Rick has said earlier, the Republicans have honed this great message to the job creators, which appeal to 5% of the American public, and forgotten the job workers. And I think Rick's heart is really with the everyday guy. In his book, Blue Collar Conservative, I'm told Donald Trump told him every Republican should read that. So I think he came across extremely well.
So what are you going to be looking for in the next debate, Foster? You know, I'm here with Jack Otter from Barron's Magazine, and I wonder if these debates, these contests, matter to markets. I want to ask you your take in terms from an investor standpoint. But first, Jack, do you think these matter to markets and Wall Street?
Not at this point, because you can't make a prediction based on what you saw last night. If somebody surged and you knew that their policies would do X or Y, then yeah, but it's too early to tell.
Foster, what do you think? From an investment standpoint, what should we be looking at when we hear the ideas coming out of these candidates on policy?
Well, as Jack just said, I don't think you can make any predictions stock market-wise. But what I think is unfortunate that a lot of the really important topics don't get the kind of coverage they do because they get so many issues, so many questions on the social issues. Now, they're important, but my gosh, as Donald Trump points out, they're cutting people's heads off, and we don't have a sense of urgency. We think, first of all, a lot of people think, well, it'll never come here. Well, look what happens in Kenya. One guy with an AK-47 goes into a mall. It only takes one or two people. So even if we aren't being hit here, all of our friends are being destroyed. I'm going to a fundraiser here in Jackson Hole that is going to help the people that were interpreters and drivers.
Right.
And these people are being systematically killed off. So eventually, when the dust settles, who are going to be our friends over there, who are going to stick up for us if we want to put up a plant or want to go visit. If you're a tourist and you want to go over there someplace, you have to wear a burqa.
Right. Foster, here's Joe and Kent.
Foster, I had a question about ISIS. You've been traveling to the region, and you now have a very serious interest in combating ISIS. I was wondering if you could give us an update on what you think after hearing what the candidates said last night, if you think that their positions on combating ISIS are actually going to work if one of them were to become president.
I think we're very deficient in this whole area in terms of alerting the American people who are our enemy. One day it's ISIS, then it's the Taliban, then it's Al-Qaeda, then it's Boko Haram. And we need to connect the dots and realize that our enemy is the global jihad movement. And it includes all these groups. And so they might be rivals. The Sunni and the Shiites are going to be at each other's throats for time immemorial. But the fact is that both of them want to establish a caliphate. And this issue is what drives a lot of the ideology that makes these young people sign up. A lot of people think it's oil or it's Israel.
Right.
Well, the former jihads, the oil in Israel had never existed. So there's a movie, a documentary, which I think everyone should take a look at. It's a couple of years old maybe, but Rudy Giuliani was in it, and it's called The Third Jihad.
The Third Jihad, okay.
And I was, as you mentioned, Maria, I was at the Black Tiger Peshmerga camp on the ISIS front lines a few months back and talked to the vice commander, and they don't even have night goggles. He said, at night, ISIS comes in and throws grenades into our bunkers. We can't do anything about it. They don't have equipment to defuse the booby traps that ISIS sets up.
Right.
So I was so surprised that no one last night talked about one of the most important things that we can do is to back the Kurds. But the Baghdad government will not let it happen because they're fearful of a Kurdistan movement that Kurdistan will become independent.
Right.
I was meeting with about maybe a dozen people. Ross Perot Jr., who has a real heart for Kurdistan. He gathered the ambassador from the United States to Iraq, the President Barzani of the Kurdish regional government, commonly referred to as Kurdistan, but it's not really a government yet.
Right.
And then the ambassador to Iraq says to President Barzani and Senator Cornyn and Senator McCain, where there's about a dozen of them, he says, we're so proud that we've been able to help you by sending you 25 MRAPs. Well, MRAP is a mine-resistant ambush-protected wheeled vehicle. So I mentioned, I was there. I've been.
Yeah, you've seen it. You've seen it up close. Foster, this is really, when you hear the stories, when you're up close and personal, they really are so troubling. We appreciate you joining us this morning, Foster. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me, Maria, and keep up the good work. You're a real talent. I love you. Bye-bye.
You're terrific. Foster Freed is joining us there. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon, Foster. Come back soon.